It was Emily's first wedding anniversary, and the entire family had gathered at her house to celebrate. The atmosphere was light, filled with laughter, toasts, and shared memories of the past year. For me, though, it was hard to ignore the elephant in the room. Emily and I hadn't spoken much since her wedding day. A year had passed, and yet the tension between us was still palpable. The problem? $5,000. A year ago, I had lent her the money for her wedding expenses. We'd made a deal. She promised she'd pay me back in a few months. Simple, right? Well, it never happened. Every time I brought it up, she'd either change the subject or dodge the conversation completely. I never expected to bring it up at her anniversary dinner, but as the night wore on, I felt that familiar pang of frustration. This was my chance to finally get an answer. So, in the middle of the celebration, I took a deep breath and said, "Emily, we need to talk about the money I lent you for the wedding. It's been a year now. When can I expect to be paid back?" The room fell silent. Emily's smile faded, and she slowly put down her wine glass. For a moment, everything felt suspended in time. Then, without a word, she stood up, walked over to me, and slapped me across the face. Hard. I froze. What had just happened? I couldn't believe it. A mixture of shock and rage hit me like a tidal wave. I stood up, heart racing, adrenaline surging, and I lunged toward her. I didn't even think. I just reacted. Before I knew it, we were shouting and pushing each other. The chaos didn't stop until our parents pulled us apart. "I'm done with this," I said through gritted teeth, seething with anger. "If you think you're right, fine. But I'll just say this, I wish you well, Emily." Her response was swift and cold. "You don't care," she spat. "Good. Because I don't owe you anything. It was a gift." A gift? I felt the wind knocked out of me. A gift? She knew full well it wasn't a gift. That's not what we agreed on. But before I could respond, my mother stepped in, sharp and disapproving. "You are so selfish," she said, her voice full of venom. "How could you ruin their anniversary like this? They're just starting their life together, and all you care about is money." I was stunned. My dad chimed in, agreeing with her, and suddenly, I was the villain in this twisted version of a family drama I hadn't even signed up for. Looking across the table, I tried to make eye contact with Kevin, Emily's husband. I thought maybe, just maybe, he would back me up. But there he was, standing awkwardly, not saying a word. He wasn't on my side either. I left shortly after, my emotions swirling in a mess of confusion, hurt, and disbelief. As I drove home, the sting of the slap still fresh on my face, something became painfully clear. I had always been the one who had to fight for every inch, every little bit of recognition. Emily, on the other hand? She was their golden child. She could do no wrong. The next day, my mom called. I expected her to demand an apology, but instead, I finally laid it all out for her. "You've treated Emily like she's the center of the universe," I told her, anger rising in my voice. "She gets everything handed to her while I have to fight for what's mine. Do you think I'm selfish for mentioning the $5,000? I had an agreement with her. She's been avoiding it for a year. How am I the bad guy here?" My mom's response hit me like a slap in the face. "She's your sister," she said, her tone dismissive. "You should be happy for her. She's trying to make a life for herself. You make everything about you." I couldn't believe my ears. I've supported her, I've paid for her wedding, and I've never asked for anything in return except that she keeps her word. But now I'm the selfish one? After that call, I stopped answering their texts and calls. I needed space to cool off, but I also needed them to understand that I wasn't going to play their game anymore. The game where Emily took, and I was left picking up the pieces. A few days passed, and I reflected on everything. Part of me regretted bringing it up at her anniversary dinner, but another part of me was furious. If Emily had just been honest from the start, none of this would have happened. Then, 3 days later, Emily texted me, "We need to talk. Can you come over?" I debated whether or not I should go, but I figured if she was finally ready to face me, maybe it was time to hear her out. When I arrived at Emily's house, it was clear that she wasn't in the mood to talk. Her arms were crossed, her jaw was set, and she didn't even offer me a seat. Kevin was in the kitchen, hovering, clearly unsure of how to intervene. "What do you want?" I asked, cutting straight to the point. Emily looked at me like I was the one being ridiculous. "You've been making a big deal out of this money for months," she said. "Why are you so obsessed with it? I told you it was a gift." "A gift?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "It wasn't a gift, Emily. We had an agreement. I trusted you. How can you stand there and pretend like this never happened?" Her face was unreadable. "You're blowing this out of proportion. It's not like you're struggling for money. You've got a good job and a nice apartment. Why does it even matter?" "It matters because it's about respect," I snapped. "It's about you thinking you can walk all over me, and I'm just supposed to take it. You think you're entitled to whatever you want, and Mom and Dad let you believe that. They never hold you accountable." Kevin jumped in, trying to diffuse the tension. "Let's calm down, all right?" he said, his voice cautious, but I wasn't interested in calming down. "You borrowed $5,000 from me. I didn't have to help you, but I did because I thought I could trust you. And now you're acting like I'm the bad guy for asking you to keep your word?" Emily's expression darkened. "Fine," she said, her voice sharp. "If it's that important to you, I'll pay you back, but I need time. I can't just give you that kind of money right now." "You've had a year," I said, my arms crossed. "How much more time do you need?" "I don't know. A few months, maybe," she snapped. I wasn't willing to accept that. "You've got 2 months. And if I don't have that money by then, I'll be calling my lawyer." Her eyes widened, shock evident on her face. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," I said, turning to leave. But as I was walking out, I glanced at Kevin. He looked uncomfortable, clearly torn between us. I didn't expect him to say anything, but his silence spoke volumes. 2 months. That was my final offer. The fallout from that conversation was swift and brutal. Within hours, my mom was on the phone again, this time with a tone of disgust. "A lawyer?" she asked, as though I'd suggested something unforgivable. "Are you seriously threatening your sister over a few dollars?" "A few dollars?" I shot back, incredulous. "It's $5,000, Mom. That's not pocket change. She borrowed it from me. She promised to pay it back, and now she's acting like I'm the bad guy for expecting her to keep her word." The argument went on, with my mom insisting that I was being unreasonable. The word unreasonable stuck with me like a needle pricking my skin. Was it unreasonable to expect someone to honor an agreement? Was it unreasonable to want respect? For weeks I held firm. Emily didn't respond, and my parents made it clear they were on her side. But I wasn't backing down. By the 6th week, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Emily directly. No texts, no intermediaries, just me standing my ground. "Emily, I need the money now." "I don't have it," she said, sounding annoyed. "That's a lie," I replied. "You've gone on vacations, bought new furniture, thrown parties. You have the money. You just don't want to give it back." Her tone turned defensive. "It's not that simple." "It is that simple," I said, my patience running out. "You owe me $5,000. I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for what's mine. If I don't have it by the end of the week, I'm calling my lawyer." The rest of the conversation was a blur of excuses, but I wasn't listening anymore. I set my deadline. The end of the week. Sure enough, a few days later, Emily showed up at my door. No apology, no remorse. She handed me a check for the full amount, her face cold, her expression distant. "Happy now?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I took the check, looked her straight in the eye, and replied, "I'll be happy when you grow up and stop treating people like they're disposable." Without another word, she stormed off. The check cleared the next day. The money was back in my account, but it wasn't just about the money. It was about standing up for myself for once, about refusing to let her walk all over me. But there was a cost. In the weeks that followed, Emily and I didn't speak. My parents made it clear they thought I was the villain in this story. But I didn't regret my decision. Sometimes standing up for yourself means walking away from people who don't respect you, even if they're family. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have stood your ground, or would you have let it go? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Trust me, this is only the beginning.